It's just about to start. Jason Kenney is going to speak to government caucus and stakeholders regarding the barrage of news that has hit Alberta recently. TechMine closing its doors, saying they're not going to operate in Alberta.
There is absolutely no doubt that this decision was taken in large part because of regulatory uncertainty and endless delays created by the national government, as well as the general atmosphere of lawlessness that we have seen take hold parts of our country and much of our economic infrastructure in the past 3 weeks.
At a courthouse just a few blocks away, the Alberta Court of Appeal in a 4-1 ruling said that the carbon tax is unconstitutional. It's huge news and a huge blow to Justin Trudeau, who was sort of coasting on different decisions made in Ontario and Saskatchewan, I believe, that were contrary to this, which means that this will be going to the Supreme Court.
Within the last hour, by a majority decision of 4-1, the Alberta Court of Appeal ruled in favor of Alberta's challenge of the federal carbon tax, striking down the federal carbon tax. And so I say to the Prime Minister, but I really say to the urban green left zealots who have been trying to appropriate the cause of First Nations, that what in fact you are doing is slamming the door shut on their economic and social future. The government and the people of Alberta are determined to overcome that zealotry from the far left, to be partners in prosperity with our Indigenous people fully in the future. Just as we were on this project, we will continue to lead the way with a model of reconciliation through prosperity, and we plead with the federal government to join us in that. And Alberta will do its part. And so I am pleased to announce today that tomorrow, following the throne speech, I will table Bill number 1 of the next session of Alberta's legislature, the Critical Infrastructure Defence Act, which will create new stiff penalties for anyone who riots on or seeks to impair critical economic infrastructure, including railways in the province of Alberta.
There's a couple of things that I wanted to bring forward before we continue this video. Number one, Kenney acts too late, in my opinion, after which many damages have been done to this province. In no small part, this instance here, 20 billion withdrawn application from the oil sands mine, that could have been prevented if Kenney had acted in a punctual manner and try to anticipate the actions of the federal government, and he could have saved the Frontier project long in advance of cancellation. In addition to that, this so-called carbon tax, unconstitutional carbon tax, voted 4-1 on the Alberta Court of Appeal. That's not going to make any difference. It'll be defeated in the Supreme Court. Everybody knows it. So this is nothing more than a political stunt. I expect fully that Trudeau has a great deal of federal Supreme Court justices in his pocket, and that the vote itself will most likely be biased in the end. So I don't have much hope for that. However, the referendum ballot that Kenney is going to put forward, that he was going to talk about just a moment ago, and we'll get into that, that might be somewhat useful to Alberta, because the question of Wexit will come forward. The Buffalo Act in the Constitution, you could say, the separation of Alberta and Saskatchewan from the rest of Canada, given the current state of affairs that are nothing more than the machinations of Trudeau himself. As for how we can bring it about, what Kenney has done is essentially the referendum can be something constitutional. When I looked at the speech further, that there's a lot of red tape, that what constitutes a legitimate request for referendum, let's say. And in addition, it will most likely, we don't know yet, but I predict and I think that any questions of separation will be dispersed or omitted or ignored. Essentially, the referendum ballot is only for those citizens that want to improve things on a micro scale. Separation would have prevented a lot of this from happening. Even the bill, the so-called Critical Infrastructure Defense Act, wouldn't have been necessary if there was enough. That should have been implemented more than a week ago, maybe even 2 weeks ago. How long that they've had CN Rail blocked up around the country, and it was up to Albertans here in this province to clear the track. God knows how many other tracks are blocked. So let me just say this. Kenney, to me, I perceive him as extremely weak. There's a lot of things that he could have done much, much quicker, much more effectively, that could have prevented further collateral damage in Alberta. I just want to pop back to the video and then we can continue on.
What questions of provincial importance, if there are questions that people think that politicians or the legislature are not willing to address or to take on, the Citizens Initiative Law, which we will introduce in the days to come, will empower the people of Alberta to put on the ballot a vote on critical issues about our future, part of our broader agenda of democratic reform to empower ordinary Albertans.
Good afternoon, Premier. My question is in regards to the second bill that you mentioned, the Citizens-Initiated Referenda. Would your government entertain a referendum that is put forward by citizens in regards to secession?
Well, the point is that it's not about the government entertaining ideas, it's about what Albertans want on the ballot. But
there it is.
As I said to the government caucus this morning, I will encourage a legislature committee to hold expansive hearings on that, on what would be the right thresholds to trigger a referendum. My view is you want thresholds that are sufficiently high that you prevent a frivolous abuse of the initiative process, but low enough that if a significant number of Albertans really believe something is a critical issue, they can get it on the ballot. Albertans would be free to put these issues. They would have to be obviously constitutional. I mean, it can't be a referendum to declare that the moon is made of blue cheese or something. It has to be there would be a process to ensure that that referendum questions are of a legal nature. But ultimately, this would be throwing the ball in the court of Albertans to raise issues of importance if they believe the legislature is not doing that.
Now, further to that, your government and you yourself are opposed to secession, I believe. How are you going to plan on persuading Trudeau as oil and gas projects are falling like flies? You've tried the carrot with your emissions cap, and I think Albertans thought that was a good olive branch, but you've tried the carrot. What is the stick?
Well, there are a number of points of prospective leverage enumerated in our Fair Deal package on which we are currently consulting Albertans through the panel. And one of those is a prospective constitutional referendum to eliminate Section 36, the principle of equalization from the Constitution Act. One of them is prospectively creating our own Alberta provincial pension plan, which we think would save taxpayers $3 billion a year, allow us to lower premiums. That would help to create jobs. It would also allow us to invest that money out of Alberta in a way that maximizes return for pension beneficiaries in much the same way that Quebec has done for 60 years. Another idea is to cancel the police services agreement with the RCMP for rural Alberta and prospectively to create an Alberta provincial police force like in Ontario or Quebec. Those are some of the ideas. We will be acting in this upcoming session on one platform commitment, which is to create our own Alberta parole board by withdrawing from our agreement with the Canadian Parole Board with respect to provincial inmates.
I like some of these things that he's mentioning, which means they've already plotted the course. The fact of the matter is he hasn't implemented any of those useful things that would benefit Albertans right now. What I'm thinking is it's politically charged. He's going to wait until the election, to which point he'll probably bring in some of those benefits if reelected. What I hate about Kenney is nobody understands how desperate the situation has become in Alberta. It's terrible. And the fact that this idiot premier can go on and just keep on dragging things as slow as possible and talk and debate and make nonsense whilst wasting so much precious time that could have prevented more damage and more chaos taking root in this province, in addition to the loss of jobs. You know, it's pathetic. Jason Kenney has enough people in his infrastructure, in his government, to make the right decisions well in advance in anticipation for stupidity coming from the federal government. And he should, not just talking about it so that we can have something to leverage Trudeau. Implement it now. Those things that he mentioned, the having our own RCMP, taking adjusting the pension plan so that we can save $3 billion in pensions that we're currently paying, most likely to Ottawa. Eliminate Section 36 of the Constitution in Alberta, eliminating the equalization tax, and then the Alberta, it's getting rid of the RCMP or our deal with the RCMP and creating our own police. Those are all excellent options. They're well-considered options. Why the hell aren't we implementing those immediately, with immediate effect? One of the reasons that I hoped in Jason Kenney and I voted for the CPC was that my hope was the equalization taxes would disappear immediately. By hook or by crook, you pass it, you put it through. Doesn't matter with a referendum. I don't care. Implement it the first year. That was my hope. Because I already had seen, after Trudeau was elected the first term, let's say, that Alberta would have been tanked in a matter of years. It wouldn't take long. Separation would be the ideal option, but of course the equalization gives them massive leverage economically over our province. Eliminate it. Get things in our control, so to speak. And, Kenney has done none of that. And, what a coward. And what short-sightedness that he now, after the fact, after there's so much damage being done, and even citizens having to take matters into their own hands, that he acts now to legislate and make into law this Bill 1 that he's planning to put in to prevent the Critical Infrastructure Defense Act. Too little, too late. Why did citizens have to take things into their own hands instead of the government ruling responsibly? It's a joke. As far as I'm concerned, the matter is closed. Start preparing for dissolution already. I like that Keenan Bexley brought this thing up because there's such a massive apathy toward politics in this country. And despite as bad as things are getting, people don't put the blame where it matters. People don't put pressure where it matters. I should be meeting with my member of the legislature every week. It's gotten so bad in Alberta. What are they doing to help resolve the issue? Nothing. Here, I continue on to the end so that you can see the conclusion of this speech, and then I'll comment again.
So I think there are 36 ideas. I think many of them constitute meaningful leverage with the federal government. I say to Albertans who want our government to play all of to use all of these leverage points right now. Please understand that we need to be strategic about this.
Strategic about what? Just biding his time as usual.
At the end of the day, I don't think most Albertans are interested in getting into an abstract debate about our cultural identity or some endless, wide-open constitutional debate. What they want...
Yeah, so that's where you're wrong, Kenney, because that's exactly what I expect. The Canadian national identity is in severe question right now, a very unstable sort of, I don't know where to put my hand on it kind of question. It's extremely vague and fragmented. If there's one legacy that Trudeau left as a direct consequence of his actions, it would be mass lawlessness in the country of Canada, an increase in a communist kind of principle in every aspect of society, and the deliberate erosion of Canadian identity in favor of globalists and fragmentation of the entire country to serve his globalist agenda. That's his legacy. And you know, what a hell of a contribution to it's not even a contribution. What a hell of an entropy that he's done to Canada. That's the right word for it. If there's a natural course of time for the entropy of a country to see its beginning and end, Trudeau has speeded that up incalculably a lot. It's immeasurable. Just, you know, imagine Canada actually breaking apart. And I do imagine it because that's what I hope for Alberta. My hope wasn't actually the country would fragment. But, you know, it might be inevitable after he's done with it.
Is an economic future. They know that means pipelines, and one of those pipelines is the Trans Mountain expansion, the owner of which is the government of Canada. So we need to use whatever leverage points we can to ensure the completion of that project and to ensure a future for our economy.
Well, this is...
So I say with confidence, Kenney is really pathetic in handling the situation when he knew and he had all those options on the table and didn't implement even one of them until it was weeks late. God only knows what would have happened to Guy Ferguson. I can't remember his last name, but I think that's it. And his they weren't friends, but I guess you could say crew associates that helped them to take down the blockade in CN Rail. Those guys could have been seriously hurt. I think one of them was hit in the neck with a sign, with the wooden part of the sign, and suffered injury. You know, it could have been much more dangerous and much more lethal for those poor people who are trying to do the right thing, and the RCMP looking on, essentially ignoring it. What a joke! When lawlessness is occurring all over the country, I wonder what Scott Moe is doing in his province to mitigate the problem. I wonder. But I do say that Kenney is quite weak and so slow to act to actually give us an advantage in a losing situation. So this video has taken so long already, so I apologize. And but you know, when I saw this video, it sparked anger in me so deeply that Kenney could be so useless in a time that we really need leadership. And you know, it is a joke, but I hope that there will be more stronger implementation of things that at least give Albertans an advantage in a time of chaos like this. Thank you so much for your attention. Please subscribe and like this video if you like, and comment below. I look forward to reading and replying to all your comments. Thank you. Bye-bye.